Yo, welcome to another episode of Beats and Vows right here on Beat District Radio with your boy DJ Phat Mack. And you already know how we do at KBDR. We with Beats and Vows. It's all about education, it's all about life, and it's all about weddings, and it's all about relationships and friendships. When I'm saying relationships and friendships, today I'm talking about one of my good friends, man.
Yes, sir.
It's Dawson High. Everybody welcome Dawson High. Sound of air horns.
Me. What to do, baby?
What's
what
good,
to do?
bro? How you feeling, man?
Oh, you know, living the dream and dreaming to live, my friend.
That's what I'm talking about,
Yeah,
man.
man.
Look here. If y'all don't know anything about Dawson, beast. Not
Appreciate it.
only in the business of the wedding world, but just a beast on them tables, man.
Oh, man.
Y'all just don't understand. I call him, he's older than this now, people. But I always call him the 15-year-old phenom, right?
Yeah, bro.
Because that's when I met him when he was 15.
Mm-hmm.
15. And I was like, who is this guy?
Yeah.
But before we get into that,
Sure.
tell me about your journey, bro.
Oh, well, so this will be, believe it or not, my 10th year in the industry. May 15th of 2015 was my first ever wedding.
Dope.
Yeah. So I will be celebrating 10 years here in May. It's been some days it's been a long 10 years. Some days, I'm excited to keep rolling through.
Right.
I started very young. My dad owned our DJ business. Started our DJ business,
Which is
High Class DJs.
There it is.
Yeah. So High Class DJs. So him and a buddy would throw these high school, or not high school, but like dances. So my dad grew up in Warrenton, Missouri, if you know where that is.
Yeah.
So they would pull kids from Warrenton, Wright City, Marthasville, and then I can't think of the other, Washington, Missouri.
Okay.
So those kind of like five cities, right? They would host these weekend parties at these like American Legion Hall, Lions Club, stuff like that back in the 90s, right? And the concept was it was $5 to get in. You could bring your own beer, all the things. They didn't care how old you were. You could be 15 years old bringing it. It doesn't work now. No, it doesn't work now.
In
but
the 90s,
yeah. So you could, be 15 years old, bringing beer, all the things, and they would host these parties. So they would rent out the Wright City Lions Club, American Legion Hall in Marthasville. There's a property out on the Warrenton Fairgrounds and all those things, and they would rack in $4,000, $5,000 a weekend is 19-year-old kids, and yeah. So imagine a straight cash. So the only rule was once the first huge fight broke out, party was over. Right. So some nights it would last.
Just of the night. Oh,
just
of
the night. Yeah.
So
you would get those young Wright City boys that were pissed off with the Warrenton boys dancing with the wrong girl. They'd go at it, and the party was done. So some nights they'd party till 2, 3, 4 in the morning. Some parties they'd only be 2 hours, 3 hours in, and they would walk away with $4,000, $4,500 a weekend. Regardless, there were couple hundred kids come through every weekend, and they just bring your own beer. First fight, we were done. Yeah, so that really started our business, and then my parents, they used the leftover wedding budget money that they had when they got married in 2002 and bought my dad's buddy out. And then that kind of sent off our wedding entertainment business. So my dad would do 20, 30 weddings a year. And I actually got into it because he had a setup downstairs. He had an old original DJing SX and passive carpet JBL speakers. Yeah. And I don't know if have you ever played on PC DJ before?
I've never played on PC.
No. So that's what he used to play on back in the day. So he built this gaming PC that he could rack mount in a drawer, like a case. and he had the amplifiers for the passive speakers and all the things, and he had a setup downstairs. So he would go to work and I would just mess with it, you know, throughout the day and stuff like that. And that really got into me DJing and fell in love for the craft. So I started as a basement DJ.
Yeah.
Started as a basement DJ.
Who didn't?
Yeah, right. Not for real.
If that's not your story, man, I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like nobody say, yeah, I started off in the club.
No.
No.
Started on a basement
Everybody
DJ.
just start off as a basement DJ.
Yep.
Living room, I don't care.
Right. Anywhere within the four walls of your house.
Yeah, I need that. I need that. If you don't have that story, I'm like,
yeah. Sketchy. Too good to be true.
Because somebody just threw you in and you just start rocking.
And some people do get lucky. Is like, but it's the fact that you had to learn at least how to open Serato somewhere, right?
Exactly.
It wasn't that, oh yeah, we're gonna throw you in Rise nightclub on a Friday night and just hope you know how to use CDJs, right? That doesn't work.
No.
Some spots now, they're getting a little sketchy on the entertainment that they bring in, but they are. Some of these things, I'm like, what are y'all doing? Yeah? You remember when the old guys used to run the clubs through and through.
And that's the thing about it. So the funny part about it is because now you will get these DJs.
Yeah.
Loosely
termed.
That's why you say DJ.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
These guys who like to play music,
Mm.
right? We're gonna get them come in, and I know we always talk. You know, people talk about the other. You know, we've seen the posts. And
sure.
stuff.
Yep.
I don't necessarily deal with it because that's not me and your lane in the first place. But you see the post with the whole undercutting because I did the clubs and all that. And it will become because the DJ come in and is like, yo, how much Dawson charge? Dawson, you know, $500 a night.
Yeah.
You know?
I'll do 3.
I do it for $50, some wings, and a bucket, and some beer.
An opportunity to take a bottle, go home.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. That's all you're doing it for. You be like, got you. You know what I'm saying? Sure. Why have bring Dawson in, even though he's bringing a crowd?
Yeah.
He has a platform for it, but the promoters, the owners, they just want to cheap out of it.
Right. And the problem is you know, especially DJs, right, in the club world, they don't understand that nightclubs are a business. Right, it's the same thing we do. Right, we're not going to go sell a $1,000 wedding and pay our DJs $800. It's not going to happen.
It's not
going to happen. So they have to look at it just as a budget everybody else does. Is if they can get some level of talent that is cheaper than what they're doing, that's more profit for them. All those old guys that own the clubs, they'd like to keep the extra $200 in their pocket every Saturday night. So you know, and some of these clubs have the outstanding audience that comes through, right? Yes, certain DJs bring in more than others, but for the most part, clubs are ran off of their regulars, right? The regular peoples that, you know, downtown, those college kids that are going to come through every Saturday night because there ain't nothing else to do in St. Louis on a Saturday night, right? It's just, you go see the arts and then you go to the club, like that's it. You know, so they really make their money off their regulars. So if they can keep the extra $200, $300 in their pocket, they're going to do it. You know, and it's just his business. It's really what it is.
And so for you, by you know, 10 years in a business, you know, you're now where you can get into some spots, right?
Barely.
Still. But a lot of DJs, that was their thing, you know, college, and, you know, like myself, college, you know, some bars and clubs and stuff like that. How did you become where you're at without breaking into that type of space? And then, you know, where you're at now, like a top tier, like far as wedding DJs.
Sure. So I was very fortunate that my dad was already established in the wedding market here in St. Louis. You know, by the time I even got the interest of joining the team, my job was as a roadie. So I would, so I would come with my dad. Well, let me back up here a little bit. So I was huge into baseball. I was a fantastic baseball player. Well, at least some people tell me. I don't know if I was really good or not, but I had, you know, there was one Sunday afternoon that my dad was power washing our house, our siding of our house, and he was going, this is probably his 8th hour, maybe 9th hour power washing. So the power washer was extremely hot. So I came out and I was like, hey, you know, I got done playing video games, whatever I was doing. Dad, can I help you? He's like, sure. And I go and I put my right hand, which is my throwing hand, on a pitcher, and I set it right on the exhaust of the power washer. and I fry my hand through and through. Like I literally, so here on you could see where the Phillips screwdriver of the exhaust pipe landed and imprinted on my hand. So I get rushed to the ER. They take me to Children's, and I have plastic surgery on my right hand. And that ended my baseball career.
So what first of all, what were you?
8, maybe 9.
You was 8, 9.
Yeah.
And what position you played at?
I was pitcher.
You was,
I pitched with my right hand, and I could never, and I can now, but I could never grip a baseball again. Yeah. So that ended my baseball career. So, traveling for baseball every weekend was my thing. Well, now that I lost baseball, I got to fill my weekend somehow. So I asked my dad, I'm like, hey, can I come with you? He's like, sure. So I would help him roll the cases in. We'd set up, and I would sit. At that point, we had a facade set up. We use DJ booths now, but we had a facade set up. So there was enough room behind the facade that my dad could DJ, and I could sit behind the facade and just play on my phone, play on my iPad. So that's what I did.
Right.
So I would set up. I would hang around the facade all night. I would eat the buffet dinner. I'd come back to the facade, and I'd just help him load out, and that was my night. And most of the times I would fall asleep, halfway through the dance floor, and he'd wake me up once they were done. And it slowly progressed from there. It was like, hey, can I do, 15 minutes of cocktail hour? Or can I do 30 minutes of cocktail hour? Or can I do the whole cocktail hour? How about cocktail and dinner? Can I play a 30-minute dance set, right? Yeah. So then the 30-minute dance set really kind of got my real love into it because of the reactions of the crowd you get, right? You can play good cocktail music, but you're never going to get a reaction like you are when you play an amazing song on a dance floor. It's not gonna happen. So I played a 30-minute dance set. So my dad would set it up. He'd probably play for an hour and a half, hour maybe. I'd play in between, and then he would basically close it out. So I played, 3 or 4 30-minute dance sets, and I'm like, I really thoroughly enjoy this. And then it started to get to the point that him and I would go together, and you'd book us as a team. So if you booked Chris, you got Dawson automatically.
Right.
So he would do all the MC work, and I would do all the DJing. And it took off from there. After the fact, we did that for about a year and a half, and we realized that we were losing so much money with him and I being together. He was a decent DJ and MC, and I was a fantastic DJ, and I didn't want to MC.
Right.
So
we know that.
Right, yeah, right. So we hired some team members, and their job was to chaperone me around and MC for my weddings.
Oh.
So dad would go out and do his, and I would go do mine. Now we're doing the same thing, but we're making double the money. And that's really where my DJ career took off. Was I just had a natural gift for it, and we realized that we would make a lot more money if me and my dad split apart.
I love it.
So we did.
I love it. So with you starting then, like you said, it's 10 years when you was 8, 9 years old, right? Doing weddings, whether it's cocktail hours, rocking the party and things like that. What do you see the evolution in weddings from then until now, in your opinion?
Sure.
And how do you feel about the evolution?
A lot less traditions. Like the one thing that I always tell clients is you never see bouquet and garters tossed anymore, right? And cake cuttings are starting to go there as well. So, obviously you'll still have the grand introductions, but that's evolving, right? It used to be that you would introduce your couples, Timmy and Ava, they would come in together. Timmy and Ava have no idea who they are, but Timmy's best friend of Jake, the groom, right? And Ava's the best friend of Sarah, the bride. So they would come in, they're like, hey, nice to meet you. I'm Timmy, I'm Sarah, whatever. And they would walk out. Now you're not doing that. You're getting team bride, team groom, or even whole wedding parties as a group, right? So much easier because I don't have to announce any of their names. Ladies and gentlemen, here's your wedding party, and they all run into a mosh pit.
Even if I have to, even if they say we want to, I was Tim Angel, I'm just spitting them off. Just spitballing them real quick, no last names.
No,
nothing.
And even when
for the bride squad, get up for the groom squad.
Exactly, that's it, man. And the thing about it is that I tell my clients, your guests aren't coming for them, right? They're not coming for bridesmaid number 4 and groomsman number 6. Not. So the faster we get through them and get to the reason we all came to celebrate your love story tonight, that's the way we need to do it. And you can come up with different concepts of how to introduce people, right? Team bride, team groom, bride squad, groom squad, whatever, marquee bottle experience, introduction, stuff like that. You can get kind of the hypeness there, but there is a lot of old traditional things that are kind of taking a back seat and being less common. And the thing is it's been happening for years, just not here in St. Louis. It's been, East Coast started doing that 5 years ago, 6 years ago. And the part about it is St. Louis and the Midwest in general is so slow to change. Yeah. And it doesn't matter what industry you're in, right? Yeah. You always see your new cutting edge technology hid in the West Coast and the East Coast, right? Because those are your populated spots of our world, right? In the Midwest is we're farmers, right? Ain't no farmer need a Tesla. It's not gonna happen, right? So that's why they're bringing them out in California and the West Coast and running them through the Bay Area and all these things, is because those new tech heads from Silicon Valley want the newest thing. Yeah. Farmers are good with driving their tractors down the 2-lane road.
And it's funny that you say that. So, and this kind of goes back to how when we met, right? And how that interaction happened. So when I I was doing weddings, right? Yep. But it's kind of like, it's something that clicks where you're like, I want to do this seriously.
Sure.
I want to potentially be full-time, which, we're full-time now. But it's kind of, going to wedding shows, meeting vendors, and, getting those relationships. And I don't know how at one point I fell down a rabbit hole of YouTube and stuff like that, right? Because at that point it was like, it's no wedding DJs, and I'm going to say around here that I knew of at that time, before we met, that I was like, it's nobody around here that I want to follow.
Yep.
That's doing it. And I'm like, I don't even know where to start. So of course you go down this rabbit hole of YouTube and start coming across, and SCE, Nick, Jason, and all these guys, and you see what they're doing in the Carolinas and stuff like that. And I was like, wow. We ain't doing none of this.
None of it.
None of it.
None of it.
This is crazy.
Yep.
So when I met you and Dad at, I think it was for ABC, was it?
I think it was ABC. Yeah.
ABC. You was doing like
I was doing the after party type
situation. So I was invited by Aaron and all that. So I came and I seen your DJ booth. Furniture. I'm not going to say booth. I seen the furniture.
Yep.
And I was like,
there it is.
I seen this from somewhere before, right? And it was because Jason Jen I had.
Yep.
And I was like, yo. Funny. I was like, hey, I seen this before from blah, blah, blah. He was like, oh, really?
Yep.
Flex. He pulled up.
Yep.
Yeah, this is me and Jason. It was like his screensaver. I was like, this bastard.
Yeah.
I need to know you. And it wasn't even hate. Eventually, it was right there. I need to know this guy.
Yep.
And I don't even know. I didn't even care how old you were, what was going on. I'm like, this is somebody I need to know. We started talking, and then you and Dad invited me out to the network that we had at the time, and things like that. And education just went from there. It just blew up. And that's why I love the relationships that we all have. The Chris's, and you know what I'm saying? And everybody. I just love it, man. And I appreciate you guys for that. For sure.
Absolutely.
And so with that being said, I always follow people on the East Coast.
Yes. East Coast and West Coast. Your coasts will always be your trend-setting people. Right? And that's really where I got my niche in the market. I was the first professional DJ that would take East Coast style music, right? So quick mixing, high tempo EDM, stuff like that, and bring it to St. Louis, right? Back in when I started really getting into it, I remember my first wedding that I was at. I was at Silver Oak Chateau for those that know that in 2019. And I was doing a banger wedding, one of those weddings that you could play the Barney theme song and they'd rage to it, right? It's just one of those weddings that no matter what you played, it was gonna work. So I had built my catalog of these housey style DJ edits, right? You know, Girls Want to Have Fun by Cyndi Lauper, but like houseified, right?
Yeah.
And I had never let one rip on a dance floor before. I was always like, this is gonna clear my floor. People aren't ready for this, all these things. I was like, screw it. Tonight's the night. There's, you know, there. If it works, great. If it doesn't,
perfect night for it.
You know, we can figure something out. So I did. I let like 3 go in a row, and it just went off. And I'm like, holy shit!
Yep.
I just found my niche, right?
Yep.
Bringing East Coast style housey vibe music to the Midwest.
Yep.
Because at that time nobody was doing it ever. There wasn't anybody doing it. That's where I found my niche, was playing that style music incorporated with the DJ furniture. Really brought that level of boutique experience that wasn't in the St. Louis market before. I was the first DJ here in St. Louis to even purchase a piece of DJ furniture. And now you see them left and right. You know, so, you know, and there's many different variations. And the thing about it, back when in, you know, the late 2010s, right? So like 2017, 2018, stuff like that. There was only a couple dealers that were making DJ furniture. And you either had to have it custom made, which I have a few pieces that are, or you bought it from, you know, the one of 3 manufacturers that were making them. Now they've gotten a little bit more, you know, broader spectrum and available for people, just because it's a huge profit margin in a market. But yeah, I was one of the first people that did DJ furniture here in St. Louis.
And do you think the reason because of that, because kind of, you know, taking a circle around here, is between the East Coast style that the Midwest is now down, and just in the wedding industry period.
Sure.
Wedding industries period, with the quick mixing and almost a club style, right? And then incorporating that with the DJ furniture is the reason why a lot of those old school formalities and whatever is kind of going by the wayside. It's like, we want to get to the party.
Yep. So I think it's a multitude of different things, that included. You also have to look at your clientele, right? So for me, my clientele, they are about 25 to 30. So they were in prime high school times in the early 2000s. Right? And they were born in the early 2000s. So actually prime high school time would be like late 2000s, early 2010s. And if you remember anything about that music, I wasn't born since 05, right? So I don't know anything pre 05, but I've done my extensive music knowledge, and you're hitting about 04, 05 up until current. And that's really what your music, you know, style is, and you're really getting away from those traditions, because that's really what your parents did.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like I remember I was talking to a couple, and we were going through like introducing names, right? And this is the point, we were still doing couples, but I was like, you know, how do you guys want to be introduced? And I said, do you guys want to be introduced as Mr. and Mrs. Smith? And the bride stopped me and said, absolutely not. I was like, oh, my bad. Okay. She's like, nothing that you did, but when I think Mr. and Mrs. Smith, I think my parents. Right? I don't want to be called something that my parents are being called. And it's not that I don't love my parents, it's just, it's a generational thing. So even at that point, now we go into just first names of our couples. You know, we pose the question, but for the most part, people don't want to be called Mr. and Mrs. Smith or Mr. and Mrs. whatever, or Mr. and Mrs. or Mrs. whatever it is, because they think of their parents. And I think it's just like a multitude of different things that included, along with the age demographic of the clients getting married nowadays. And all of that is just generationally moving through the phases of traditions.
Yeah, for sure. And because I tell couples all the time, I'm like, hey, it's on, because you know I use Vivo. Sure. So I'm like, it's on there, but and when I talk them through the demo, I was like, when you want to delete something, you don't want it anymore. Like, say for instance, the garden, I was like, I'm leaning towards it, like, you don't want to do this. It's becoming cringy. Yep. All that good stuff. Yep. And I'm like, if you're going to do anything that's somewhat traditional, it's a bouquet, but do a bouquet handout to your mom. Yep. You're not doing
and that seems to be all the rage right now.
Yeah, and I love that. It's more sentimental, and your mom appreciates it, and you don't have to worry about the bridesmaid. I literally seen somebody, like, not seen them, but I heard them. I know somebody, let me put it this way. I know somebody that was in a wedding party, went for the bouquet, and got her arm broken.
Jesus.
It's
dangerous tactic.
I'm like, it's a wedding, people. What are we doing? It's a bouquet. It's not that serious.
No.
And you're still not married.
Yeah,
but
right. Yeah, right.
So
it ain't gonna matter anyway.
It's not gonna matter anyway. And things like that.
Yeah.
What is some of your pet peeves when it comes to weddings in general, especially when the thing about this podcast is it's about teaching.
Yep.
You know, so when you come across some DJs that's at a different level and things like that loves to cater to you, but at the same time, we like really.
Yeah, and you know, the part of it is, and the way we sell ourselves is, we want our DJs to thoroughly enjoy the process with you, right? You want to enjoy your DJ and make sure you have the right DJ for your day, but I also don't want to spend 8 to 10 hours with somebody that I'm not a fan of, right? Like we've all done some weddings, you're like, I should have stayed at home. I should not have, you know, even you know, the amount of money wasn't worth it, right? The headaches, that you weren't really connecting with the vibe or the client or whatever the case may be, is
try to keep pushing
you just keep pushing it through. You're like, you know, look, it's a couple grand, right?
Yeah.
On a Saturday that I wasn't working. Some of those, I'm like, that's not even worth it to me.
Yeah.
That's not worth it to me, right? Some venues, I'm like, nope, ain't going there. Outside in August, I'll pass. I'd rather sit at home in my air conditioning than go work at some farm out in the middle of the country and you know, and just call it a day. But you know, I don't really have many pet peeves, and I think that the part of it is knowing your clients, right? My clients understand what I provide as an entertainer, and I understand what they're looking for. And a lot of my clients don't do bouquet and garters, right? And even when the ones they do, my first question to them is, how many single friends do you really have?
Right? Thing, man.
Not married, engaged, boyfriends, situationships, nothing. Because I've seen weddings where, you know, I had this girl that was a bridesmaid. She was in a semi-serious relationship with this random dude that was at the wedding. And she was like, screw it, I'm gonna go do the bouquet and garter, right? And he was extremely upset because he's like, you're not single. This isn't how this works.
And when people do want to do it, and I'm like, hey, if you're not married, you might be in an awesome relationship today. That person might be here with you. But we're just talking about those who aspire to get, so it kind of relieves that stress of like, I did come with this guy, or I came with this girl. But okay, you're meaning single, like far as if you have yet
not a ring on your finger.
Exactly. And that kind of relieves that stress. And they're like, oh, I guess I can't go up there, versus like, should I go up there? I know we've been together for 2 days.
You're right. I just met him during the ceremony.
I don't want them to feel bad.
And you know, and that's always my deterring question to clients is, how many single AF friends do you have? And they really start to get thinking about it. I'm like, the answer is probably not many. And you know, I had a client, I met with her last week, and she was like, you know, Johnny wants to do the garter toss and whatever. And I'm like, okay, cool. How many single friends does Johnny have? And she thought about it for about 2 minutes. And she was like, 1. I said, we're not doing a garter toss.
We're not doing a garter toss.
We're not doing a garter toss for one person. She was like, you're right. Let's just mix it. And the concept that people also don't understand is you don't need it, right? More of the garter toss and the bouquet toss and the anniversary dance and all these things, dollar dance is one of them. Oh my God. Is
unless you're international. And it's usually not formal. It's just when the party starts, they're just making it rain, but it's not anything formal.
The only time I will do a dollar dance is if I have such a long dance floor that I want to kill 30 minutes.
Understand.
Because I can extend a dollar dance for about 20 minutes, 30 minutes. I can be playing slow songs for an hour straight. Because when you start the concept of a dollar dance, people will line up. And you're always that one person on like, okay, do I end it here? But then she's got 10 other people that want to dance with her and all the things. And so I just let it ride. And I've done dollar dances that are 20 minutes long, 30 minutes long. And it's great when you have a 4-hour dance floor, because now that 4-hour dance floor is turned into 3.5. And then, you know, it's when you look at stuff like that, it's very time consuming. right? If you only have an hour and a half dance floor, there is no reason you need to do a bouquet and garter or an anniversary dance or anything like that, because you don't need to fill time. I can fill time. I can run you guys through a roller coaster in an hour and a half. That's simple. Now you say that we have 3 hours, we might need to come up with something. But you know, a lot of those traditions are starting to go by the wayside without even us having to have those conversations.
Sure.
Again, circling back to your client demographic, you know, there's not people that are 25, 30 years old that want to dance with a creepy uncle on the third side that they've never met before in their life, right? That dances a little too close. You know, and they're like, I don't have single friends. And, you know, I also have started to build my wedding day to where I only have an hour and a half, maybe a 2-hour dance floor. I don't need something to fill time. So a lot of those traditions are going out by the wayside on their own merits. But the only pet peeve that I can think about is I am a strong advocate for no kids at weddings.
Oh my.
And it's not that I hate children. I love kids. If they are well behaved, fantastic.
Right.
The problem is there are more non-well behaved kids than they are well behaved. And
even if they are well behaved, you have the parents that just let them loose.
Yep.
Because they look like, hey, I'm having a cocktail, I'm having a glass of wine.
Free babysitter. And there's 300 people in here that are gonna watch my kid.
They're not going anywhere.
They ain't going nowhere.
Go in there, go in there and look at his lights.
Yep. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Flashing in your eyes.
Yes.
Sure. Why not?
Right. Like,
I don't care.
And the part about it is DJ furniture is people and kids especially are so mesmerized about it. They've never seen anything like what we bring, right? They've never seen movers and trusses and speakers and lights that change and all these things. Like normal people don't have these things. So they're like, oh yeah, let's go hang out by the DJ and touch shit that we're not supposed to and run over cables. And the biggest thing is the TV booths. They like to touch the screens and the mirrors. And I'll go through weddings and like I'll open up our DJ booths the next day to clean it, and there is fingerprints over the entire front side of the booth. And I'm like, what the hell? And it's the parents that watch their kids do it in front of me. Right?
Yeah,
I'm DJing, and they're just gonna watch their kids put their hands all over my TV.
And then, I don't mind requests, right?
Sure.
But coming from a kid, first of all, the music is blaring.
Yep.
And you can't play. I don't understand what you're saying. I can't hear what you're saying.
Yep.
Half of the time, I don't even know the song.
Yep.
So I'm like,
And
oh my goodness, I'm like, and you're the only one, you and your other friend, cousin, whoever is want to hear this.
Yep. It ain't gonna happen.
300 people don't want to hear this.
And the funniest thing to me is when like parents will shoot their kids up to the DJ because they're like, well, they'll say no to me, but they won't say no to little 3-year-old Susie. And so I've been down and in the funny part about it is Susie doesn't even know what she's requesting. So when I ask Susie, hey, you know, that's a great, you're 3. You're like, that's a great song. Who sings it? And then they run back to their parents and then they come back. And I'm like, why don't you just have your parents come up and ask me for it?
I'd rather turn the kid down before I turn it up.
Oh, absolutely. I'll turn anybody down.
Yeah. If it's a trash song.
No. I don't even, it doesn't matter how old you are.
But with the, like we were talking about with dance sets, right?
Yep.
So here in the Midwest, we have a certain way we do things.
Sure.
Right? Where on the East Coast, they have 2 or 3 different dance sets throughout a wedding day, right? But what do you think is a premiere that couples should be looking at? A premiere dance set. Like, how long should that be? Because we know what time your ceremony is. We want to start your cocktails an hour, all that. But when they look into that, what do you think is right there?
Oh, I'm here for like an hour. I'm just playing. I'm just playing. Although I did have a wedding that I had a 45-minute dance set. And it was the best dance that I've ever.
I had one of those too, bro.
It was one of the best weddings I've ever done. It was fantastic. Yeah. You know, and I always tell my clients is you always want people wanting more.
Yes.
Because the thing about it is sitting here, you know, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, a year, 2 years out, you think you guys can dance forever. And the fact is you can't, right? And you know, when couples are like, yeah, we're gonna have a 3.5 hour dance floor, I said, okay, let me ask you a question. Have you ever gone out to a club and danced for 3.5 hours straight?
Never.
The answer's no.
You never have.
The answer's no, right? So no, nobody ever has, right? So I always tell my clients work backwards, right? So if your venue says, hey, you guys need to be out by midnight, everybody's gotta be out by midnight. We're locking the doors at midnight. You take an hour on top of that, maybe an hour and a half, depending on how much, you know, centerpieces and stuff you actually have to bring out. But an hour is a good time frame. So you say, okay, we're ending our wedding at 11. Add about 2 hours on top of that. That's when your dance floor needs to start. So if your wedding is done at 11, we are not dancing before 9 o'clock. If not a little bit past 9 o'clock, because always weddings, you know, do normally run a little late. So 9 o'clock, you have an hour for dinner and about a half an hour for toast, dances, all those things. So you're introducing at about 7:30. Cocktail hours, an hour on top of that, so 6:30. So you're getting married at about 5. You know, 5 to 5:30, 5:30 to 6:30, you know, all the things. And the portion about that is you get clients that are like, okay, we're gonna get married at 2. All in the same venue, right? Okay, how long is your cocktail hour gonna be? Well, we're gonna have like an hour and a half cocktail hour. So by the time we even introducing, your guests are shit-faced because all they've done is eat crackers and drink for the last hour and a half. And you know, then those weddings that are like, yeah, we'll go to 11. Some will even say, let's go to midnight. And I'm like, by 8:30, people are leaving. People are going home. They're done because, you know, and partly because you have to look at the whole day as a picture.
You have to.
So if you say, okay, I want to get married at 3 o'clock, that means guests are being here by 2:30. Normally, most guests live about 45 minutes, an hour away from a venue. So they're leaving their house about 1 o'clock, 1:15. That means women are getting up at, you know, 6, 7, 8 a.m. and they're getting dressed all day.
Mind you, yourself along with your wedding party
is getting dressed at it's 6:30 in the morning. So do you want to go? And that's what I always clients is like, think about it in not a wedding day specific.
There you go.
If I say you have a packed day starting at 6:30 and is done at 1, do you want to do that?
You're exhausted.
And the answer is no, right? And neither do your guests. Your mother of the bride doesn't want to get up at 4:30 in the morning to start getting breakfast for all the bridesmaids that are coming through, hair and makeup people here. You know, you're taking photos all day, you're smiling to where you don't want to smile for the next month, right? Because your cheeks hurt so bad, right? Right?
I just like another picture.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you know,
these people.
Yeah, no, for real. Like, I don't even know them. Like, why are we taking a family photo? And you know, the portion of that to be is you have to look at the whole day in a whole rather than just, yeah, we want to dance for 3 hours. It's not gonna happen.
No.
Not gonna do it.
No.
Not gonna do it.
And that's the thing. I don't care if you used to go to raves, whatever
yes.
the case may be.
You were also 17.
You were 17.
That you couldn't even probably get in.
And you probably was on something.
Yes.
That night. And
yes.
That's only how you did it. But this night, you're not going to be that same way. Your guest is not going to be the same way at all. Things like that. So, and with that being said, like you was talking like mother-in-laws and you know, your grandparents, whatever. Do you curate your dance set according to who's like with the family, trying to appease the family?
Sure.
Or I know how to do it, but I'm curious on how Dawson does it. I know how I try to curate mines with, they was like, well, we want to kind of appease our aunts, our uncles, you know, whatever. I was like, cool, we're going to appease them during cocktail hour.
Yep. So it's about the collaboration experience with the client, right? So we have 3 meetings with our clients, and all 3 of them are primarily talking about music selections because that's why you hired me, right? You hired me from my expertise in the music field. If you didn't need an expert or didn't feel like you needed an expert, you could go rent a speaker from Guitar Center, plug in your Spotify playlist, have Uncle Jerry with his little wired microphone that he bought back in the 90s, you know, from Radio Shack, right? That's got a cable that may or may not work. And he could do your introductions and all the announcements that you need to do. You hired me for my expertise in making sure that you have a fantastic time in a memorable time that you cannot replicate ever again. That being said, I do a multitude of different things. One of them being what I call an ideas list. And that's what I do with my couples is I steer away from the must plays, the play if possibles, and the do not plays, right? I keep the do not plays because those are important, but primarily the must plays and play if possibles. If you put a song on your must play, there's a good chance that I have to play it, right? If that's what it's labeled as a must play, that song might not work. You know, I always tell my couples, the one thing we cannot plan for. We can sit here and plan for 2 years straight, write down every single song in every single order. You cannot plan for human reaction and human behavior, right? You might be the biggest Morgan Wallen fan. If he came through that door right now, you would be ecstatic. But maybe on your wedding day, you don't really want to listen to Morgan Wallen, right? There's some days that I'm listening to Usher and then I'm done with Usher on a Wednesday and I hit Justin Timberlake, right? And it's just, if you play an Usher song on that Wednesday, I might turn it off, right? And it's just because that's not the vibe I'm going for that day. You know, so I always tell my clients, let's look at it as a broader spectrum of an ideas list. You guys put all your songs in, and I use that as an idea and a foundation. Yes. And I also take what your guests are really vibing to, right? And that's what we use cocktail and dinner for, is I want to see if table 13 is into Motown or disco or all these things. And I take the opportunity to watch all of the guests there at the wedding day. That gives me the idea, okay, these group of people are really into Motown. These group of people are really into hip hop, all these things. And I take all that and I take that in my left hand and I take the ideas list on my right hand. I put them together and that's the final product. So on a dance floor, I don't separate music choices based on age, genres, whatever. Nice. So, you know, some DJs will be like, okay, for the first hour, we're gonna appease the grandparents and the older folks. And then after that hour, we're gonna go straight into Sexy Red and all these things and just let it rip for the rest of the night. Well, the problem is what if mom and dad or aunts and uncles wanna dance at the end of the night? Unless they're riding with Glorilla and Sexy Red. Some of them do. Some of them do. Most of them don't. They don't get the opportunity to dance. So I take that as I take the old, the new, the in-between, and I mix it throughout the end of the night, right? And throughout the entire night. I could play Sexy Red in the first 15 minutes of a dance floor, if that's where we're at.
Because you still want to keep some of the younger people, the older people, all on it. So even if it's a Sexy Red, then next thing you know, 2 songs later, you're in the wall. You know, you never know, because if you have a great DJ, you can potentially we can do that, right?
Yeah, and the biggest thing is you never have to worry about young people, ever.
Yeah, you never do, unless they go into the bar.
Right. Your young people are always going to be on the dance floor. Yeah. It's your old people that you have to keep on the dance floor, right? And again, you know, you even look at generationally the songs, right? Dancing Queen. Dancing Queen came out in the 70s.
It's still pop.
In the 70s. I did a high school prom here, or a high school dance a couple weeks ago. That was the biggest song of the night. And a lot of that is due to TikTok. Right? Yeah. TikTok is bringing those 70s, those 80s, those 90s songs back to where kids thoroughly enjoy them. So your young people that are ranging from my age to a little bit older to 30, 40, and even now your older people grew up when the song originally came out, right? Back in the 70s, back in the 80s when that was on the radio. Now the new kids have now been able to re-expose themselves to the song because of social media platforms, that you now have 2 generational periods of people that are 20 years, 30 years apart enjoying the same song like they all listened to it when it came out in the 70s.
Because with that being said, what do you see the trend? Because TikTok, we know, has took us to a whole different level of quick mixing, and everybody's, you know, we only listen to 15, 30 seconds of anything, even by somebody talking. Like, this form of podcast right now, they're like, really?
Right.
Yeah, you know, but it is what it is, right? So what do you, what's the trend that you foresee coming? You know, following people on the East and West Coast.
Sure.
Do you see a certain trend that St. Louis has yet to embark or even embrace, I should say?
Yep. I am a strong advocate for multiple dance sets. You know, you hit on it a little bit earlier, is East Coast weddings, you know, you have 3 different dance sets, you know, 2 at least, 3 is the standard. And I've done many East Coast weddings and I've done many West Coast weddings. That's a thing. Like, people want to build multiple dance sets into their day. And partly because of that is it breaks up your wedding day, right? If we come in and do introductions and, you know, do all of our special dances or whatever we're doing, all the formalities, and you guys sit down, you guys eat your salads, in between your salads and your entrees, let's get up and dance. Because what are you gonna do either way? You're gonna sit there and wait for your entree to come out, or, you know, you could get your body moving and get your body flowing. And as you bring people up for that first dance set, that gives your maitre d' and all your catering team an opportunity to clear all those salad plates without people in their way, right? And they have the opportunity to sit those full dinner plates down without anybody in their way. You turn around 20, 30 minutes later and say, hey, folks, go sit down and eat your main course. I love it. And by the time you get back to your table, your salad's gone and your food's ready on your table and it's hot. Right? You get that opportunity to, then they eat their entree. You get them back up, you run a little bit of dance floor, they do that same thing, but that's dessert. And I don't know if the dessert concept is going to hit so hard in the Midwest as it does in the East Coast. I know when I do East Coast weddings, they make 30 minutes out of a cake cutting.
That's crazy.
You get the cake cutting, you know, you do that earlier in the night, you have your catering team cut it, and then after that second dance set, when they plate the cake, people go down and they sit for 30 minutes. Because you get your cake and then your older people get their coffees and they sit down and they relax for a little bit, and then you bring them back up. So you're spending, where we spend 90 seconds on a cake cutting, most East Coast weddings are spending 20, 30 minutes on a cake cutting. You know, so it's that different feel, right? And then you finally bring people up for their last dance set. By this point, it's what, 9 o'clock, maybe 9:30. So you're again only dancing for 2 hours, you know, an hour and a half, right? It spreads the day out, because, you know, even if you have, say, a 2.5 hour, 3 hour dance floor, most East Coast weddings have a 3 hour dance floor. It's just split into 3 different parts. You have your big set at the end, which is about an hour and a half, 2 hours, and then you have 30 to 45 minutes, 2 sets of those earlier in the night. So it takes that 4 hours, but it spreads it out and makes it more manageable. For a DJ, it makes it fantastic, because I can take that first 30, 45 minutes and strictly make that a Motown disco set and alienate your older people and make sure they're given. So by the time we get to that last hour and a half, people are ready to turn up and rage. So I might open the dance floor with Get It Sexy, right? And people are ready for it. You know, so I've done it a couple times, and it is worked without a hitch every single time. So I think there's a lot of different timeline maneuvering abilities that Midwest couples can take advantage of to be those trendsetters. Just like when I did it in 2019, when I did the house music and the DJ furniture, people will eventually catch up, but you will be known as the trendsetter. Yeah. Right.
And I have one couple that wants to do that.
Yep.
They want to do a early dance. I was like, oh, I'm here for it. Mm-hmm. I'm not even mad at a dance as soon as you get introduced, because everybody's hyped.
Yep.
I'm not mad.
I've done that too.
Everybody just we're gonna party for at least
15 minutes.
15.
Yep.
Something like that. What's wrong with that?
Nope.
Just keep it going.
Yep.
Then go sit down, and then just kind of same thing, go from there. Even if we don't do the cake cutting,
sure,
but at least that's a dance set.
Yep. Right? Yep. But you know, and I think people, you have to find the clients that are willing to take the risk.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Because the part is trying something new, and no matter what it is in this world, you have the chances of failing, but you miss 100% of the opportunities you don't take. Right?
And you know what we're not doing, and it's partially our fault. We're not presenting it to them.
Right. Not educated.
Because we're, at the same time, they look at, you know, what a potential timeline could be, right? But imagine if we did and they were like, dance in 15 minutes. They was like, what is that? Oh yeah, it's
like 3 songs, right?
This is the trend now.
Yeah.
Like, it's a trend?
Yep.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Yeah.
For sure.
And I think
they'll go for it. We just got to present it to them.
And I think then again, it comes back to the risk taking, right? Is if that dance floor, early dance floor doesn't work, everybody's going to turn around on the DJ and say, your idea and it failed. Right?
That's okay.
And that's okay. I'm willing to say, it was an experiment. It's something that doesn't happen very often in St. Louis. And that's what I disclaim is if you want to do this, fantastic. I'm all here for it in my professional opinion, but I want you to know that it might not work. I will try everything in my power to make it work and make the expectation exactly what we want to be, but it might not work. And that I want you guys to be okay with the potential of it not working, right? And if you're okay with that, I'm okay with that. And as long as you guys don't come back 2 days after your wedding and say you f***ed up my wedding because of your stupid little dance floor idea, then we're chilling, we're cool. But I think DJs like to run with what works because they don't want to fear the fact of if it doesn't work, you feel bad that you pitched the idea that didn't work.
Sure. Because what's a major, because my thing is with couples in the first place, they're going to follow you dancing.
Yep.
So if you dancing, they're going to dance, right? But what we talked about the trends and things like that. What is like a major tip that you will give to couples, to your clients, you know, future whatever, or even your current ones? Like, what is something that's major that you like? You know, this can be epic for you guys?
I think the opportunity to take the risk and do something different.
Yeah.
You know, most couples in nowadays is all your friends are getting married, right? Yeah. I have a couple that I just met with, they're like, Dawson, we've been in 12 weddings in the last 12 months, right? I was like, shit, you guys are professionals. Like, you might as well pick up a microphone and be a DJ, right? You know, and you have to be the one that wants to be different, right? Yeah. You can be different with the way that you set up your timeline. You do multiple dance sets. You know, you have a DJ that brings in cool DJ furniture, cool lighting, or all the things, you know, or, you know, you just do small, simple things that are different in not the traditional way, right? You're like, hey, you know, we maybe are only going to introduce the couple, right? Rather than wedding party, or, you know, do small things. It can be as simple as that, to where your wedding feels a little bit different than the other 11 friends' weddings that you went to, that they all introduced couples. They had a 3-hour dance floor at the end of the night. Like, you can do small little things. It doesn't have to be major, right? You don't have to say, okay, we're going to fly everybody to the Caribbean and do our wedding at the Caribbean, right? To be different. You can do small little things that are a different vibe and set a different energy in your wedding day. So my piece of advice to current couples, new couples, couples that are not even have hired either one of us to be their entertainment, is be willing to take those risks and be willing to be comfortable with being different.
I love it. I love it. And then, you know, like I said, I appreciate the group that we have, you know, and the camaraderie that you have been in and that we all started and things like that. And the thing about appreciate it, like, you guys don't mind, like, hey, here's some tips and some tricks as a DJ, because it's all about what they say. It's not competition, it's collaboration, right? So with that being said, what are some tips that you will give to DJs who may be in the club world or maybe in the bar world, that is like, I want to become a wedding, in a loosely saying, but we get it, in more private event, exclusive DJ in that realm.
Sure. You know, a lot of it is finding the right people to mentor against, and don't find people that you're just willing to take information off of, right? Don't come to somebody and say, hey, you know, how do you do this? How do you do this? How do you do that? You know, and steal their ideas. Take the concept of being a wedding DJ and make it your own, right? And that was the biggest thing, is I didn't want to be like every other wedding DJ here in St. Louis when I started, right? I wanted to be something different. So I took a little bit of the Midwest traditions, and I took a little bit of the East Coast and the West Coast influence, and I built my niche, right? You got to be able to find your niche, because if you are just another wedding DJ that sets up on a 4-foot table with Evolve 50s or Evolve 70s or whatever, if you want to buy the big systems, right? You know, you are going to get lost in the crowd. And there are many wedding DJ companies and many wedding DJs that are solos that are now dominating the industry, right? There's a handful of us that mostly do all the weddings here in St. Louis. And if you're not different or not a part of one of those teams, you are going to get lost in the sound.
And that's the thing about it. And with me, I feel like I'm probably one of the only black DJs that's
Sure.
really trying to expand and do more things. And that's once again with you guys' help and stuff like that. And that's even before we met, it was like, how can I separate myself from, you know, everyone else, from my from the rest of my
You gotta be different.
comrades, you know, and think just be different. And that's why I encourage, you know, DJs to be different. Don't be afraid. So I'm glad, man. Look here, Dawson, man. This will not be, we gotta do a part 2.
Absolutely.
We gotta do a part 2.
No, I 100% agree.
We can talk all day.
Absolutely.
And
I love
talking. We didn't even get a chance to touch on it for real.
Yeah.
There's so much stuff we didn't get a chance to touch on.
Absolutely.
But I appreciate you, man. Most definitely.
Yeah, bro.
Tell everybody how they can find you, how they can follow you, how they can book you, all those beautiful things.
Sure. Man. So I own High Class DJs. So, you know, highclassdjs.com. Personally as Dawson.High on Instagram or anywhere Dawson High really. But a lot of it, all my bookings go through my company High Class DJs. So High Class DJs on Instagram and Facebook and highclassdjs.com.
Appreciate you, man.
Yeah, bro.
As always.
Appreciate you.
Much love.
Yeah, man.
And then until next time, between time, right here on B District Radio with Beats and Vows. You just tuned in with your boy DJ Phat Mack. And the one only sound of air horns, for Dawson High. Really appreciate y'all. Until the next time, between time, each and every Wednesday, 4 p.m., 5 p.m. for Beats and Vows. And then, of course, you're going to catch us on YouTube and all day, every day. Till next time, between time. Peace.